What's up, guys? How's everyone doing today? My name is Jamie. You guys know me as Mystic Mac DFS from over in the Reddit communities. I hope you guys had a good week 3. This week, we're just going to go over XFL week 4. We're going to break down quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and then try to build a couple of lineups. See where we end up this week. This will give you guys a good idea of the players that I'm looking at this week. Hopefully, it will help give you guys a good idea of who you should be looking at this week or who you should be avoiding this week, and it can help bring us some success this week. So I'm excited to go over it. We're doing a little bit, like I said, a little different format this week. I wasn't able to get out a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver videos throughout the week. So we're not just going to build lineups. We're going to make sure we touch base on each of those positions so we can kind of go through who some of my favorite guys are at each position. And so we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to start here at the quarterback position, of course. Before we do go into the quarterbacks that I am into this week, we'll go into some of the quarterbacks that I'm not into this week. For me, I think there's probably 4 quarterbacks on the slate that are going to be playable. For me, I think I'll probably only have interest in 3. And I think the 4th one's kind of a fringe one, just a little bit maybe outside looking in, just depending on what I will do and how many lineups I do plan on building this week. So we'll start with the guys that I'm not going to have interest in. I do want to touch base on this Tampa Bay situation first. Last week we know Taylor Cornelius got the start for Tampa Bay. However, Quentin Flowers mixed in throughout the game, just like we expected. Quentin Flowers, I think, had 11 dropbacks to Taylor Cornelius, 30-plus dropbacks. Another wrinkle into this is going to be that Aaron Murray is going to be active this week. Coach Mark Trestman stated that Murray is going to play. He's not going to start. However, he does have 2 to 3 plays designed specifically for Aaron Murray. So, again, it's going to be like a murky situation. And I think based off these guys' price tags, if we had a confirmation that one of these guys was going to play, 85%, 85% of the team snaps, I would have a little bit more interest. But the fact that we have 3 of these guys potentially mixing in at different situations, it's just not going to be a situation I'm going to touch on this slate. So that is going to be kind of a fade for me at the quarterback position. Next, we can kind of talk about another game I'm not going to have too much interest in from the quarterback position. Brandon Silvers was a guy last week I mentioned that had a little bit of potential based off playing up against Dallas at 7.5K. He had 17 points, so he wasn't terrible. He didn't kill you by any stretch, right? Like Cardell Jones at 10 point, I think 8K was he last week? Like, he killed you, right? Like 7.4K, Brandon Silvers at 17 points definitely did not kill you by any stretch. He threw the ball 34 times, completed 61% of the passes. We would have liked a little bit more efficiency and a little bit, a little higher average depth of target for Brandon Silvers, but that's okay. 17 points was fine. But this week is going to be a completely different week. He's playing up against the St. Louis team that is going to be wanting to run the ball at a high clip. Seattle is also a team that wants to run the ball at a high clip. So the fact that both of these teams want to really be a run-first team just makes both of these quarterback situations pretty murky. Jordan Ta'amu is at 9.5K, and I think that he's a good quarterback, and I think that he makes the St. Louis team pretty fun to watch when he goes up against a team like Houston or even a team like Dallas, right? Like, I would much prefer him to go up against a Dallas team that has Landry Jones at the quarterback and not Phillip Nelson, right? But we saw his upside, what he can do against like a Houston team when his back's up against the wall and he's forced to throw. The issue is last week, when they were double-digit favorites against a very inferior New York team, he only threw the ball 18 times. Yeah, he completed 12 of those passes, but he's just not getting any production. There's no volume there. He does run a little bit. Last week he only ran 3 times. So again, I think his rushing upside is going to be really there against these teams like Houston and Dallas, where he's forced to run 8 to 9 times and even possibly double-digit times. I've talked about before when he played in college, he had 2 to 3 games where he had 16 plus, even 20 plus carries in a game. So there's always going to be those games where if his back's against the wall, that he's going to be able to run. He's going to have that elite upside. This is not one of those games going up against a team where they're projected to win by a touchdown or more. I'm just not going to have too much interest in Jordan Ta'amu at this week at that price. Next, we'll kind of go to LA in New York. So here, New York is just going to be a team I'm going to stay away from. We do know Matt McGloin is out. Marquise Williams is an interesting piece because I do think that out of all three quarterbacks, he's probably the best out of all three. Him and McGloin did struggle a little bit last week. Louis Perez came in and did have some success throwing a touchdown pass. I just don't have much interest in Louis Perez. I don't have too much interest in Marquise Williams just because we don't really know what we're going to get out of this quarterback situation in general. And I do think if Marquise Williams at the helm, I do think they're going to be maybe a little bit more of a run-first team. They're not going to pass as much. I just not going to have very much interest in New York quarterback situation. As far as Josh Johnson goes, he's that guy for me who was the fourth option. I wouldn't hate it, but if we can see here, he's the second highest priced quarterback on the slate. I just don't think the volume's going to be there for him. He had one of the most efficient games and per PFF had one of the best games all year by any quarterback. We knew coming into the year that he was arguably one of the best quarterbacks, and he did showcase that last week. He only threw the ball 25 times, extremely efficient with that. He averaged 11.1 yards per attempt, 3 rushes. So in his 2 games, he's averaged just about 3.5 rushes a game, which is okay to see, but he's not really doing much with those 6 yards and 3 yards. Josh Johnson, again, I get it. The biggest key with Josh Johnson is number 1 wide receiver Nelson Spruce, who we'll touch on a little bit later, is out this week. So that's just going to not be a situation I'm just going to want to go. I think maybe just taking individual pieces like Adonis Jennings, maybe Jordan Smallwood, Kermit Whitfield. We'll touch on some of those guys later for Los Angeles. But as far as a game stack, I just don't necessarily see the upside, especially when there's a game that we're going to talk about next that is just has a lot of upside. Houston, Dallas. This is by far the game of the week. It's the only game with a game total over 50. Philip Walker all the way up to 12K. Insanely priced. Did hit 40 points last week. Got that bonus. He's 42, 23, 32, right? He has a very, very strong floor. So as far as cash games go, I have no issue with him. My cash game quarterback's very likely going to come from this game, Philip Walker or Landry Jones. I think whatever you can do price-wise, both of these guys give you a lot of different options of where you can go, and I feel like both of them have a pretty strong floor. Landry Jones is just going to be chucking the ball. This team just had from the start of the game, they want to throw the ball. They had an 82% early down pass rate so far this season in the first half of games. So like I said, they're wanting to throw the ball. They're playing no huddle, playing very fast. So this is going to be a game I'm going to have a lot of interest in. So I love Philip Walker. I love Landry Jones. Both of these guys are going to be among probably 2 of the highest owned quarterbacks on this slate, but I think for good reason. It's not going to be something I'm going to really want to try and fade. They will be building blocks for my game stacks. So we got one more. Now we're going to talk about DC. Cardale Jones. Absolutely terrible. Per PFF, one of the worst quarterback performances by any quarterback so far this season. 2 fantasy points, 26 pass attempts. So the issue with this team, I don't think that Cardale Jones, what happened there isn't, I think that was an anomaly. I'm not concerned about that going forward, about his efficiency. I do think that he's going to be much more efficient. What I do have concerns with is that this team wants to run the football. This team does not want to pass the ball. This team, it's very clear Pep Hamilton just absolutely wants to run the football. They're running the football about 52% of the time on early downs. They're just, that worries me, right? When you're playing, at least now he's 9.9K, and I was hoping, I mentioned it last week, right? How I'm going to go to him again, hoping to see that maybe this trend will kind of get away, and with Josh Johnson being on the other side, maybe have these 2 teams see a shootout. But even with this team getting blown out by 30, they didn't even want to pass the ball. There were still times they were running the ball on first and second down, and it's just a really tough situation. But I do believe that this is a good matchup. It's a really strong bounce back spot. I do think that he's going to go way overlooked, especially with almost everybody wanting to play Houston and Dallas this week, and then with Josh Johnson having a good game, then wanting to play Josh Johnson. I can really see Cardale Jones going overlooked this week. Like I said, it is a situation where you have to be aware you're not going to get the volume that you get out of Houston and Dallas, right? Or if you do, it's just a low probability. Like that's not going. You can't bank on that. you're going to have to bank on him being extremely efficient, probably throwing the ball a max 30, 35 times. And you got to hope that he completes 25 to 30 of those, right? And you better hope that he has 3 to 4 touchdowns on those. And that is in the realm of possibility with Cardale Jones. I do still think that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the XFL, and I do think that he is one of the best receiving cores that we're going to talk about. But that kind of is for the running backs. So you can tell my 3 main running backs is going to be Phillip Walker, Cardale Jones, and Landry Jones. Josh Johnson outside looking in. Now we're going to kind of go into the running backs. I'm going to make this real short and sweet here in the running backs. I like Cameron Artis-Payne. Well, first let me just make this pretty easy. I don't want that. There's 3 teams I'm going to be looking at getting running backs on this week. There's 6 running backs that I have written down so far. 4 of them that I've strongly on. The 2 of them are kind of outside looking in. Okay, so if we're going to do that, let's look at Los Angeles. So last week we know Elijah Hood was a late scratch. Super frustrating because it was about 15 minutes before game time when we had to wait till a beat reporter said that it doesn't appear like Elijah Hood is on the field. So then we were able to realize, okay, he's going to be inactive. And that's how we found out he's inactive. So that's pretty piss poor from LA to be able to get that news out there, and from the XFL in general. This news has got to be able to get out there quicker. So make sure you guys are on top of the news. I cannot stress that enough. That's good. That's the most important part out of all of this, is watching those injury news, as far as I'm concerned. So I like Elijah Hood. We have Martez Carter, who had a good game last week, but he is listed doubtful this week. Larry Rose expected to play this week. Larry Rose and Elijah Hood are the 2 guys I think are on the outside looking in for me, but I think they're the fringe 5th and 6th options. I can see it for tournaments, especially Larry Rose at 3.5K. Elijah Hood is not going to be involved in the pass game. If Martez Carter out, I do think Larry Rose is going to get that slot back. He's going to be the guy getting a lot of the work in the pass game. And at 3.5K, even though I don't see this team passing a ton against an inferior New York team, I think that is a good price tag for Rose. And I'll have some interest there. Elijah Hood, again, I'm going to have interest in here just because he's going to play a good amount of snaps if he's in there, especially with Carter out. And like I said, I do think that this team has a good chance of winning this game. New York is an inferior team. If he does get in the end zone once or twice, he'll be able to break the slate. But, like I said, those guys are fringe 5th and 6th options. The guys I really want to talk about are at least top 4 here. Cameron Artis-Payne, Matt Jones, then Starmart, Christian Michael. So I prefer the 2 cheapest guys, obviously, right? Just based off of the price and based off of the fact that I just don't feel like the usage from Cameron Artis-Payne and Matt Jones outweighs Lance Dunbar and Christian Michael. At least for me, anyways. And I think, don't get it wrong, I think all 4 of these guys are really strong plays. I think Cameron Artis-Payne is a really strong play. I think Matt Jones is a really strong play. If I had to choose, I'm choosing Lance Dunbar and Chris Michael, but I will have Cameron Artis-Payne and Matt Jones, absolutely. So Matt Jones last week played in 46% of the team snaps. Christian Michael played in 42% of the team snaps. And we got a 7.1 price tag and 5.7 price tag on that. So that's why I said I kind of prefer Christian Michael there. Like I said, Matt Jones is getting 17.6 touches a game. Christian Michael is getting 12.6 touches a game. Again, that's just going to be, now that I think about it, I think there's one more running back actually I want to add real quick. Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second, actually. I just don't want to forget about him. It just popped out of my head. But like I said, Christian Michael, for me, I do prefer just a little bit more than Matt Jones based on that price. Lance Dunbar is a guy that he played in 61% of the team snaps last week. Cameron Artis-Payne played in 77% of the team snaps. So you can see a good upward trend with Cameron Artis-Payne and Lance Dunbar in snaps played in the last 3 weeks. All of them are increasing, or both of them are increasing, which is really encouraging to see. Both of them are being targeted. So Matt Jones and Christian Michael are polar opposites of Cameron Artis-Payne and Lance Dunbar. Matt Jones and Christian Michael saw 0 combined targets last week, or ran 0 combined routes last week. Cameron Artis-Payne and Lance Dunbar ran a total of about 45 combined routes last week, right? Cameron Artis-Payne ran, I think, like 26. Lance Dunbar ran around 19, something like that. So total opposite guys, but I still think that Cameron Artis-Payne and Lance Dunbar are going to be two of my favorite guys this week because they're in a game environment that I have a lot of interest in. So it's very easy to bring back a guy like, if you're playing a PJ Walker stack, it's easy to bring back, with Lance Dunbar or Cameron Artis-Payne, or maybe both, and then bring back, a Flynn Nagel back with it. So it's very nice to kind of mix around and play with those guys. But I will absolutely have a lot of Matt Jones and Christian Michael as well. Before I forget, I want to talk about Davion Smith and Jax Patrick. Last week we liked Jax Patrick because these guys had an identical 50-50 split in snaps in week 2. In week 3 was a little different. Davion Smith got back up to 61%, and we saw Patrick's drop down to 41%. I do think Davion Smith's price tag at 6.1K. I think that's an okay price tag. I think that's something I might have a little bit of interest in. He is going to play in about 60 to 70% of the team's snaps, which is going to be solid. He's averaging 15 touches, a game, which is second most in the league, just behind Matt Jones and just a little bit above Cameron Artis-Payne. So I do want to mention Davion Smith. I'm not sure I'm going to get there this week, but if you played him, I don't mind that at all. And I think if you wanted to bring him back on a DC stack, I think that's fine as well. I'll briefly talk through some wide receivers. Just to note, Cam Phillips, obviously, the number 1 wide receiver in the league, right? It's very clear. Back-to-back weeks with 3 touchdowns. But the guy who's been the number 2 wide receiver in the league, Nelson Spruce for Los Angeles, is out, like I mentioned, which is going to be a big knock to Josh Johnson. But that's going to open up guys like Adonis Jennings, maybe Saeed Blacknell, depending on his status. He was out last week. Kermit Wilfield's a guy that's going to be interesting. Brandon Barnes, Jordan Smallwood, and Trey McBride. So Trey McBride got a big increase up to 8.1K after he caught 2 touchdowns last week. He only ran 16 routes and played in about 27% of the team snaps. So if that's a trend going forward, that's going to be something I'm not going to want to pay. I'm not going to want to pay 8.1K for a guy that's not going to play a lot of snaps. He was on the injury report this week. However, Nelson Spruce is out. So we have to think if Trey McBride is healthy, is he going to play a lot more snaps? I'd probably imagine so, right? Like, I'd imagine that he's trending in that direction. His health is a concern. He was on the injury report. Like I said, watch that. 8.1K is a big price tag. If you're playing him, you're thinking he's one of the best plays on the slate, right? So I think it's important to note that if you're getting Trey McBride at 8.1K, you're hoping that he's going to be playing 60% plus of the snaps and running, 25 to 30 routes a game. Which, like I said, with Spruce out, could be an option. You're just going to have to wait and see with that. But all of these guys, I think I prefer Adonis Jennings, probably all of them, just like I said, based off of the price tag. Saeed Blacknell was out last week. He's likely going to play this week. It's tough to really gauge these wide receivers. You're going to need to just be paying attention. This is the first game of the slate, so you will likely have a good idea. But just like I said, pay attention to that injury report. As far as receivers go, I feel like, honestly, we can touch base on a lot of my favorite wide receivers as we build. Yeah, as far as we build the game stacks. Let's start building the game stacks, and we'll touch base on wide receivers there. So we're going to go and just start with Landry Jones stack. I'm going to bring it back. First guy in Landry Jones I like. So we got Don Parham, Jeff Badette, Flynn Nagel, Jazz Ferguson, Josh Crockett. Those are going to be the guys that I'm likely going to have any type of interest in stacking with Landry Jones from the receiver position. Of course, we'll talk about the running backs as well. Lance Dunbar, Cameron Artis-Payne. I think I'll perfectly find a pair of Landry Jones. However, from the receiver position, those are to the guys. Don Parham did get the biggest price increase. I still think he's a very solid play. He's going to get 7 to 8 targets a game. And he's running routes from the slot, which I think is going to be very beneficial for Landry Jones. So I think that he's still a strong play. Jeff Badette and Flynn Nagel, I'm not sure if this price discrepancy should really be there, which makes me lean a little bit to Flynn Nagel. Jeff Badette's a speedster. He's absolutely going to be able to burst and bust a big one at any point in this season. Very well could happen this game. So those are going to be the 3 guys I'm probably going to lean on the most out of those wide receivers position. Jazz Ferguson outside looking in, I think, is okay. Josh Crockett, who did play a decent amount of snaps last week and ran a good amount of routes, I think it's okay, but it's a little bit deeper for me. I'm not sure I'm going to get there on just a few lineups that I'm building. So I like to go ahead and pair. Let's go with Flynn Nagel, and we'll go with Lance Dunbar. I like to go with there. Boom. So now we got a little pair, so let's bring it back. I want to be able to bring it back with the Houston guy, of course. Now, of course, Cam Phillips. I want to make it very clear with Cam Phillips. Last week, he was a cash game staple with me. I dominated cash games. I faded him in tournaments. I did terrible in tournaments. So that's the beast of the nature, and that's why I talk about diversifying your lineups a lot. And I think that's important to be able to hedge like that. So if you're playing him in cash games and you're a lot invested there, if you're playing in tournaments and the guy's going to be extremely high owned, I think he's a really strong GPP play. Right now we're looking again this week, same situation. He's going to be extremely highly owned. He's 11.7K he's by far the highest priced wide receiver that's available to play on the slate. And like I said, he's going to be the highest owned guy. I don't want to, and that's the thing, a tough thing. I don't want to completely say fade him because I'm not going to fade him because this is my favorite game of the week. It would be foolish of me to fade him. I think I might have a little bit more exposure to some other guys like Khalil Lewis, Sam Mobley, even maybe Sammy Coates, Nick Hawley, right? Probably a little bit more exposure there, but I will absolutely have some Cam Phillips exposure. For this lineup and for the sake of game theory, I think I'm going to fade Cam Phillips. He's not going to score 3 touchdowns every week. That's just simply not going to happen. He's going to have a game where he's going to have 6 catches for, maybe 85 yards, and that's not going to cut it at 11.7K at his ownership. It's just not. So I'm going to fade him on this slate. I like to go with Khalil Lewis, 8.9K. That's a good price tag. He's going to play 75% of the snaps, going to run 35-plus routes. I think that he's going to be a strong play. I would probably put him in here because I do think it fits pretty well with the prices where we're at here with Lance Dunbar, 6.7K, Nagel, 4.8, Jones only 9.8K. So I don't think we necessarily need to go to, with Sam Mobley at 3.4K or Nick Hawley at 4.5K. Sammy Coates is a guy, though, he's just been bad. There's no other way to put it. He's been really, really bad. He's been extremely inefficient, but he's a deep play threat. Has one of the highest ADOTs in the league. He's going to be a guy that's going to be boom or bust every single week. So if we put Sammy Coates in there, just go with the expectation that you're going to hope for 2 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that is not out of the realm of possibility. That will happen one week. With how explosive this team and this offense is, especially in this particular matchup against a very fast-paced team in Dallas, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think Sammy Coates is going to blow up. And one thing we know about Sammy Coates, and I've talked about in prior weeks, is that Sammy Coates is a guy that we love to play when he's projected to be low-owned, and he has an affordable price tag, like 6.1K. It's getting to be an affordable price tag. It still probably should be a little lower for his production. But for his upside, I think it's okay. And his ownership is going to be down. Right? In those situations, those make Sammy Coates a good play. When Sammy Coates is a bad play is when his price tag is high and he's projected to be a high-owned play, like he was early on in the season. That's when Sammy Coates becomes a bad play. He's probably going to be very low-owned this week. He's going to get extremely overlooked in this Houston and Dallas game, probably from all the wide receivers, I would imagine. And so I think he's a fine GPP play. I'm going to make it very clear. He's been extremely bad. He's extremely inefficient. He'll probably get 7 8 targets. He's only going to catch 2 or 3 of them. You got to hope for big plays. But like I said, that's not even close to the realm of possibilities. You could easily put him in. I'll put him in here for now. Like I said, him or Khalil Lewis is honestly fine. As far as defense, I'm just going to put random 4K defense, Dragons. Yeah, I think they're fine. Slow-paced game. Now we have 2 spots left. I don't want to completely fill it out, but we have 9.3K. We can do almost anything you want. So even if we didn't want to do Cam Phillips there, right, or Sammy Coates, and you wanted this, or Cam Phillips, 6.5K each I think is perfectly fine. If you didn't want Cam Phillips and you wanted Khalil Lewis, 7.9K. You can still do about anything you want, right? So I think this team and this stack gives us a lot of flexibilities. Put Sammy Coates in 9.3K. Like I said, Eli Rogers, I think it's going to be a really strong play this week. I loved him last week. It's going to be a guy I'm going to like a lot this week because I think that this team is creating plays for him. He gets involved right away. There's times in the game where he starts to drift away where he's not getting involved. But these guys are scheming up plays early in the game for Eli Rogers. So that's going to be a guy I'm going to like to target. Always, too, Rashad Ross, like we talked about last week, will always be a boomer bust play, very similar to Sammy Coates, but he's been much more efficient. On the time he's been out there. He did play 75% of the routes last week, which is a good increase from the 55% he's played in the first 2 weeks. So I think Rashad Ross is going to be a strong play as well. We go down. Mikael McKay, I think he's second or first in the league in average depth of target, with a minimum of 10 targets. So he's a boom or bust play guy. McGloin has missed him multiple times this year. Obviously, the quarterback situation is going to be murky, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities for him to catch a big one. But just realize you're paying $8K, a pretty premium price for a guy that's probably going to get 4 targets, and you're going to hope that he busts a big one. Like I said, GPP guy absolutely could happen. Dan Williams, I'd much prefer to play. I think he's probably my favorite Tampa Bay guy, and I do like Jalen Tolliver and Reese Horn a decent a bit. But I think I prefer Dan Williams this week. He did have a decent, if Aaron Murray does get going in the game, he did obviously have that really big week 1 with Aaron Murray where he really showed out, where he had saw 9 targets, 6 receptions for 123 yards. So he did have that rapport with Aaron Murray if he would come in for a few occasions, but it is a pretty premium price tag. But I still think Dan Williams is probably my favorite out of all those guys. And going forward to some of these other wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, 5.2K. Just way too cheap. He's one of my favorite cash game plays of the week. I think he's an absolutely fine GPP play as well. I'm not sure how much ownership he will garner after really disappointing last week as well. And going down, once we start to get down here, it's really going to be some of those LA guys, Blacknall. It's going to be Adonis Jennings. Yeah, if we're playing 3K, it's going to be those type of LA guys for me. Sam Mobley, actually, is going to be a 3.4K because he's a guy that played in 58% of the team snaps. I want to say he ran 15 plus, I think 18 maybe routes last week for Houston. So it kind of looks like he's trending to take over Sammy Coach's spot. It's just something to keep an eye on going forward, right? We'll have a better idea this week, next week, and as the weeks progress. That's going to kind of do it for these guys. Let's make another lineup. We'll start with opposite side. Well, I'm not going to go make opposite side. You guys got an idea, right? It's all of these guys I kind of talked about. So I don't really want to waste your time of building all these lineups. I think of kind of the same people, right? Like, that's not going to do you any good. So I think the fact that I like both of these quarterbacks, you kind of already know how I mentioned these wide receivers, about how Cam Phillips, I think, is a strong cash play, but his price tag and his ownership makes for a viable GPP fade. You guys know my thoughts on Sammy Coates, how Flynn Nagel, I don't think the price discrepancy between Jeff Badet and him is worth it, or is worthwhile for Badet. But like I said, Jeff Badet is a speedster in this offense, so I'm going to have some interest there, but he's not going to be my favorite play on Dallas by any stretch. So you guys got a good idea there. So let's build one more lineup quickly. Cardell Jones. I mean, I just like beating a dead horse here. I feel like I pay Cardell Jones every week and just donate money on this guy. But hopefully this week, I think his ownership and his price tag is going to be pretty decent. So I'm going to take some shots. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to put him in here. I think Eli Rogers or Rashad Ross. Like I said, I would diversify to get a little bit of exposure to both. I'm going to just go with the cheaper Rashad Ross here, since I did mention and went with Eli Rogers in the other lineup. Like both of those guys. Bringing it back, we talked about Dan Williams. We talked about Jalen Tolliver, Reese Horn. Those are going to be the 3 main guys for me. Nick Truesdale was out last week. Watch him because Goolsby did play about 50% of the snaps, ran double-digit routes. I'm not going to have interest really in Goolsby, though. Nick Truesdale could be okay at that price tag, but I would probably prefer the 3 wide receivers. Either one of these 3 guys are honestly fine. Probably Reese Horn because of the price tag. If I wasn't going to pay up for Dan Williams, I would go down just to Reese Horn, which kind of leaves Jalen Tolliver right in that middle tier, in between, right at 6K. I did mention also the running backs. Devion Smith, I think, is perfectly fine. I'm going to prefer to go with Reese Horn here in the running back situation. Like I said, it's going to be focusing pretty much on these 2, right? LA if I need to. But I really like this team. Cameron Artis-Payne, Matt Jones, and somewhere Christian Michael. I have 7K left. If I would kind of plug in a defense here, I was going to plug in 4K. Dragons isn't my favorite defense by any stretch of the imagination. They're just 4K. They're middle of the pack, so I'm putting them in. 8.6K left here. 2 positions. I'm probably going to pay up for Cameron Artis-Payne in that spot. gives you 9.2K to do whatever. You could easily go Eli Rogers, bring it back again. It's kind of a pretty hefty stack, though. I'm not going to lie. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd much prefer getting a guy like Khalil Lewis at 8.9K. I think that's really solid. Don't even mind going down if you want to save a little salary, right, and leave some salary left over, which I don't hate at all. Play like a guy like Jordan Smallwood, I think is fine. Like I mentioned, Dan Williams, Kel McKay is probably a little bit of a stretch. Trey McBride always has that, obviously, like we saw, big play upside, but I think Khalil Lewis would probably fit pretty well in that lineup. So guys, this is going to do it. This went a little longer than I was hoping to, but I did want to kind of go a little bit by position so you get a better idea of my thoughts on each position. But this is kind of do it. This is some just basic lineups that I'm looking at to start of this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free, send me a message. You guys can go to my Twitter, which is at Jamie, Jayme, _Orth, ORTH. And of course, if you guys can like, subscribe, that would mean a lot. I do appreciate that. And lastly, I do want to note that I do have some exclusive content over on my Patreon, like I mentioned in prior videos, which is Patreon.com/MysticMacDFS. And you guys feel free to go check that out. I have a bunch of data sets. I have a bunch of articles, GPP, cash tiers, usage pods, a bunch of different stuff that I go over pretty in depth for all my Patrons over there. And we have a good chunk of people over there. And I feel like everyone's had a pretty good amount of success so far. I know that I have. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a good week 4. And I'll see you next week. Bye.